Welcome to the Assess Workshop. First of all, I want to thank everybody for taking time out of your busy schedules to be here today. It means a lot to Dataprise, and it means a lot to me personally as well. My primary role is to oversee our clients' security strategies. So I want to start off with a key thought, or a quote here. This is from Frank Blake, chairman of Home Depot. "We believed we were doing things ahead of the industry. We thought we were well positioned." So we touched on the Home Depot breach briefly earlier when Chuck mentioned it, but just a little refresher there. Over 50 million credit card numbers were stolen. Over $40 million in just immediate remediation costs, and the litigation costs are actually still pending. So that's going to be a significant number. So what's the takeaway there? Well, for too long, there's been a disconnect between our business leadership and the business units involved in defending our organization. For too long, we've believed that security was just the problem of the IT department. But it's not. Security is not just an IT problem. So I get this a lot. We have a firewall. We have servers that are patched every week. We have antivirus. We're good, right? Well, all three of those things are important, but they're not everything. We need to ask ourselves as an organization two questions. The first, are we defendable? So what do I mean by defendable? Here we have it. Make yourself and your organization defendable to malicious individuals and groups, defendable in court, defendable to regulatory action, and defendable to your brand, both personal and organizational. So what does that mean to the assess phase? Well, how can we defend ourselves if we don't understand what our risks are? And how can we understand our risks if we don't understand our assets? Next question, are we resilient? A resilient organization meets its commitments and objectives with consistency and predictability in the face of changing risk environments and potential disruptions. So ask yourselves those two questions. Is your organization defendable? Is your organization resilient? So the goal of the assess phase is to figure out what we need to know and what we need to do to be able to answer yes. One of the most important things we need to understand is the threat landscape. And to do that, we need to know our adversary. Cybercrime is a business with very high return, taking little effort. Criminals target businesses that are custodians of a commodity that can be monetized. Things like identity information, both employee and consumer. So I hear this one too. Well, I don't process credit cards. I don't have client information on my systems, so I don't need to worry about security. I can ignore it. Well, you can't. You have employee information. And our employees are depending on us to be custodians of that data and to protect it appropriately. Okay? Financial information, payment, banking, gift cards, entertainment accounts. So I added the entertainment accounts up here because I actually saw an interesting article back in February. I don't know if anybody else saw this. There was a group of attackers who were compromising Netflix accounts, and they would sell them on the black market. So what does a Netflix account cost? $10. Well, they're selling them for 25 cents a pop. Because what do they care? It costs them nothing. They run a scan overnight. They wake up in the morning. They have 1,000 new accounts. They put them on the black market, and they go to the bank. So one of the other things we need to understand is that threats change over time. So I want to introduce you to a concept here called the threat balloon. So imagine you have a water balloon in your hand and you squeeze it in the center. What happens? Well, the water moves left, the water moves right, but the water doesn't go anywhere. So the same thing can be said for cybersecurity. When we implement that new firewall or that new IDS or that new IPS, the criminal's not going to wake up the next morning and say, oh, shucks, I guess I'll go apply for the FBI. No, they're going to look for a way around that new defense. Cybercriminals shift their tactics to hit soft or attractive targets. So what's an example of this? Well, over the years, we've seen firewall, IDS, IPS technology get better and better. And we've also seen an increase in spear phishing campaigns. Tactics meant to bypass the technological defenses that we're putting in place. So this is for the it's still just an IT problem crowd. Systems cannot secure themselves, and they cannot be expected to block every attack based on static controls designed years, months, or even weeks prior. That's because static controls cannot shift with the threat landscape. That firewall that you installed last year, you might have installed it perfectly. All your ACLs were right, all your access controls, everything was right, but the threat has shifted since then. So we need to consider that. So that's where the cybersecurity intelligence lifecycle comes in, because it's made up of our people, our processes, and our technology, not just technology. If an intelligent person is conducting an attack, An intelligent person must be directing the defense. Remember, know our adversary. This is a business. These people are very good at what they do. So we need a very intelligent person on the other side of that attack. Let's take a look at some of the goals of the assess phase. If you don't know where you are, how will you know where you are going, and how you will get there? So how do we know where we are? That's our baseline state. Here we're going to adopt a standard. We're going to compare our current assets to that standard. What do we have in terms of computers? What do we have in terms of people, process? Then we're going to ask ourselves those two questions we raised earlier. Are we defendable and are we resilient? If the answer is no, we need to have a discussion internally about what that might look like. That's going to be our target state. Then we're going to come up with a roadmap. So we're going to look at our baseline, we're going to look at our target state, we're going to come up with a roadmap to see how we can navigate to our target state. This is, I guess, the textbook definition, if you will, of assess. To develop the organizational understanding to manage cybersecurity risk to systems, assets, data, and capabilities. So how do we do that? In order to effectively manage risk, you must first know what you have, we went over that, how critical or valuable it is to your organization and to others is also important. So I have a client, they're a nonprofit, and one of their most valuable assets is donor information. They need to protect that donor information because the donors do not like necessarily their names to be on the front page of the Washington Post. Maybe for political reasons, maybe they don't want to know how much or how little they might be giving. So it's valuable for them to defend that, because if that gets leaked, those individuals are not going to donate next year. Make sense? And the threat landscape, which we've covered. So out of those three discussions, we're going to determine how should you protect it. So how should you protect it? Well, shouldn't I just protect everything? Well, maybe you should, but would you put a $100 lock on a $50 bike is what we're kind of getting at here. We need to protect things proportional to their value. So in order to do that, our organization should be able to place a value on each information asset it owns. How much did it cost to create or acquire? How much would it cost to recreate or recover? How much does it cost to maintain? How much is it worth to the organization? And how much is it worth to the competition? So based on this criteria, let's think of something that might be valuable to the organization. Well, we've touched on this a few times, our people. Our people are our most valuable asset, and our people are also our most vulnerable. So a couple of months ago, how many of us saw the spear phishing campaign where the attackers were posing as CEOs and CFOs, sending an email to the accounting department, frantically and forcefully asking for a wire transfer, right? So they did that to bypass the technical controls. They're going straight for our most vulnerable people. Okay, let's take a look at some of the assessment solutions. So these are the solutions and activities that are going to assist us during the assess phase. The key one here that I'm going to pick up on is the security gap assessment. And by the way, you should all have a handout that goes into most of these in great detail, so I'm not going to touch on all of them. But I want to highlight the security gap assessment. So that's what we've been talking about. Come up with a baseline state, compare it to a standard. Then ask ourselves those two questions. Are we defendable? Are we resilient? If the answer is no, figure out what that means for our organization. That's our target state, and create a roadmap about how we're going to get there. So high level here, our goal is to understand what we have so that we can protect it appropriately. Appropriately means cost effectively. You know, most people don't get into business to protect credit card information. But they may need that credit card information to receive payment to generate revenue. So in order to have that credit card information, they have to protect it. Because remember, being defendable also means being defendable in court. And if you're not showing due care and due diligence in your custodial duties of that data, you're going to be held liable. So,